Welcome to episode 4 of the MJ Sports Podcast. I'm Mark, and I'm joined by Jonas. And this is your week of sports in review.
Sports. Woo! And we're back after an extended break. And I am happy to welcome our guest of today's show. Coming from the Evangel University, he stepped up to the plate this year. He's an RA. He's a leader. He is coming to us as our Cleveland Browns football specialist. We have benevolent Ben Font. Let's give him a warm round of applause. Woo!
Thank you, Jonas. Those were very kind words.
That was a beautiful intro. I'm not sure if it quite matches up to Devin's, but
I got to try though. I got to try to put in that effort.
It was pretty close. It's about what you'd expect for someone coming from Cleveland.
True.
Oh, come on. We're not that bad.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about you guys later, but we're actually going to start today off talking about the MLB a little bit. And this doesn't apply as much to Ben, but me and Jonas, we just wanted to talk about some of our picks that we picked in previous episodes for the MLB that didn't exactly pan out. One of those being the White Sox. I know I was high on the White Sox, and I actually tried to make the bold pick that they would end up going to the World Series against the Dodgers. Big mistake on my part.
It's okay. I'll give you a pass there because, I had them beating the A's, not the Astros. But, that was our very bad baseball pick. But it's okay.
Yeah. So we've got a couple stories coming out of the MLB. One of those, America can rejoice. The Yankees are out.
Amen.
I know I'm happy about that. I'm sure most people are, unless you live in the New York area.
Yep. I'm honestly shocked that they lost.
I am too, but this Rays team, and the Rays are one of those teams that don't get a whole lot of recognition. I don't think not having fans affected them too much this year because it's not that different from every year for them, no matter how well they do.
Yeah.
But they've got a lot of young talent on this team. It's just they've quietly put together a really nice-looking roster. It's just hard to – I don't think anyone would have picked them going up against the Yankees to come out of that as the winners.
Yeah. I still don't think they'll beat the Astros just based off the Astros' performance against the A's, but I think it'll be a good series, though, at least.
Yeah, the Astros are kind of seem to be thriving on, I don't want to call it an underdog mentality, maybe almost like a victim mentality. Like they're playing sort of the victim, even though the reason everybody hates them is because they cheated. And I think that's kind of driving some of their performance a little bit.
Correa and Springer have been absolutely obliterating in the playoffs.
They have. I got to say, playoff baseball is just a whole nother animal to watch, though. The bat flips, the energy, the screaming. I love to watch it. So, we got the Rays, beating the Yankees. I think the other big one is the Dodgers just keep on rolling. It's unfortunate for the Padres to have to run into the buzzsaw, which is the Dodgers. I think maybe if they would have been fully healthy at pitching, maybe they would have been able to at least take a game, but the Dodgers just don't look like anyone can beat them right now.
Yeah, it's tough because you kind of thought San Diego would have won at least one game there, but yeah, like you said, just the injuries it just killed them, unfortunately. And after they spent all that, time and effort on trading for like 12 different players there, but I don't know. They kind of fell off in the second half of the season, and hopefully we see more of them next year. But yeah.
Yeah. I think part of their disadvantage, too, is that's still a very young team. A lot of that team has never been to the postseason compared to a Dodgers team where it's just an annual occurrence for them pretty much. A lot of those players have been to the postseason many, many times. I know there's no fans, but, just playoff baseball, I think experience does make a difference there.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see them play the Braves. I mean, I think it'll be another close series. Kind of depends on how – it's just going to depend on who scores more runs in this series, I think.
Yeah, the Braves are going to need to get some good outings from their pitchers. That's going to be the key here because LA is just – their pitching is so good between Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw and the rest of that rotation. I mean, it's just –
Do you think playoff Clayton Kershaw will return in this series?
He hasn't so far. See, the thing with Clayton Kershaw that's been interesting this year is it's like the first year in a while that his velocity's up. His velocity's up to his pre-2017 levels. And so, I mean, I think that does have a part of it. I honestly think part of it, too, might just be the shortened season.
Maybe.
Because with pitchers, I mean, you got to think as the year goes along, you're putting more stress on that arm maybe at the end of the season. I mean, that's kind of why you have pitching inning limits a lot of times. So I'm wondering if maybe, that's the 60-game season has really benefited Kershaw and will allow him to continue to pitch ball in the postseason here.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's a good point. But going into the future, they might want to limit Kershaw even more than if this is what they think might be helping him this season. Maybe take the Strasburg approach almost.
Yeah, Kershaw's getting to the point in his career, still phenomenal pitcher. But he's got so many innings on his arm, it may be beneficial rather than trying to pitch him, 8 innings a game. Maybe try to start tapering off once he starts getting higher pitch counts, trying to avoid those big pitch count games. Maybe give him a day off in the rotation every once in a while. I think that'd be really beneficial for him to keep playing in the long term. I mean, he could still put up plenty of innings if you do that because he's so efficient with his pitching. But yeah.
So, well, I just want to see some more entertaining playoff baseball. So.
Nope. I agree, and I think we've still got plenty of that to go, especially if the Astros and Dodgers get to meet at any point. There's going to be some sparks flying in that series.
Joe Kelly being Carlos Correa again.
You are going to see people get hit in that series if it happens. You will see fights break out. You will see ejections. That will be a phenomenal series to watch from an entertainment perspective.
I agree. I think that's what everyone should be cheering for, but that's just me. Maybe.
Yeah.
I also think this MLB playoffs, I think the NBA playoff system should take lessons, and just the first round should just be a best of 3, the second round best of 5, and then best of 7, best of 7.
Nope. I agree. Honestly, the way the playoffs have been so far this year, I think this format's here to stay.
I hope so. I've always thought the MLB needed more playoff teams.
Yeah, well, and part of it is the one game, the one game and you're out type of mentality. I mean, that's fine if you have to go to like a game 163, but everybody wants more playoff baseball. So if you make it a 3-game series, it gets a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I think it would be better, and I think adding the extra wildcard teams, I think, kind of proved its worth this year because you had both the 6 seeds beating the 3 seeds, and then like the Cardinals Padres series was 4-5, and that was a good series, and the A's and the White Sox series was good. So I think they should stick with the 8 teams going forward. Maybe they should add 2 more teams to the league as well.
I think that's actually beneficial to have expanded playoffs in baseball, especially because one of the concerns over the last couple of years has been so many teams tanking, because it seems like there's like the upper echelon of so many teams that are, elite, like the Dodgers, and so you've got a lot of teams that in baseball, there's a pretty wide variety and like market spread over how much teams are willing to pay. And so if you add those extra 2 playoff spots, that gives more clubs the opportunity to try to compete and may discourage them from, just throwing in the towel so early.
Right.
I think that'd be really beneficial. And that's something that the league needs to overcome before I think they do an expansion. They need to get more teams actively invested in trying to win rather than facing a long multi-year rebuild, because it's no fun to watch Orioles baseball or Pirates baseball, although I think the Pirates have been in a rebuild since the 80s.
Yeah.
It's so if this stays, I could very well see an expansion. And honestly, I mean, the 2 biggest locations I've heard is, Montreal, bringing back the Expos, and then I've heard San Antonio is a popular destination that could come to be.
Yeah, well, it would definitely be fun, I think.
Nope, I think that'd be good. Well, I think that's about it for baseball that we're going to cover for this week. So let's shift gears and move into the NFL a little bit. There's a couple key storylines we want to cover. One of those being, I think this last week with the Patriots game.
Well, before we go into the Patriots, I say let's just go right into our correspondent here and let him talk about his Browns. Just say whatever you want.
All right.
Rub it and.
Are we talking this
week?
Rub
it
this
all
week or last week?
If you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna rub it in Jonas's face because the Browns did pretty much dismantle the Cowboys. But so going into halftime, I was like, okay, yeah, we're looking pretty good. And then the third quarter, it just continually got worse. And as a Browns fan, you never have any security in the team. There's always some way. You always know there's some way we're going to blow it. So the third quarter in the early fourth were me going, oh, God, we're going to blow it. So it was pretty rough to watch, but give it to OBJ coming out clutch. Dearness Johnson, talk about a stepping up, 95 yards off the bench after Chubb goes down. That was something else. That was pretty impressive. I was pretty impressed last week. Looking forward to this week. I don't know how we're gonna do. The Colts defense is pretty freaking good this year. So
yeah,
we'll see how they hold up this week.
It was such a freaking terrible game to watch as a Cowboys fan. Just because, I mean, getting down 41-14, you're pretty much thinking there's no possible way that we can win. Yet we got 3 touchdowns and 3 2-point conversions in a row to make it 41-38, and all our freaking defense had to do was get a stop. And what have they not been doing this entire season is exactly that. And we just let OBJ just get an easy 50-yard well, not necessarily an easy, but 50-yard juke us out touchdown. But
I think my big takeaway from that game is that the Browns are starting the wrong quarterback. I mean, that
honestly,
dime that Jarvis Landry dropped. I mean, I don't know. I mean, with the way, I mean, Baker's been playing better these last couple of weeks, but that was quite a dime there.
oh yeah, it was beautiful.
And Chubb getting hurt killed my fantasy team though for last week and for the future. But yeah, something
he's
like
out,
that.
what, 6
It was
weeks?
was it like a torn MCL or just it was something like that. But
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
but yeah.
Well, let's stay talking about that. Let's talk a little bit more about Dallas's defense.
Can we just talk about our entire
help 'em.
team and how bad it is?
Well, yeah, but I think your defense is the big
Okay,
glaring
so the thing
weakness.
is that we went last year. We played well, and under like Rod Marinelli, we were a 4-3 defense, and you know because we have so many good like defensive linemen and just big bodies. Like we had like Robert Quinn, Lawrence. You know we've had Randy Gregory over time, Tyrone Crawford, Malik Collins. And then this year we let Malik Collins go as one of our defensive tackles. And we let Robert Quinn go because obviously he wanted way too much money. And so we get Alden Smith, and we still have DeMarcus Lawrence, and we still have Tyrone Crawford. So we bring in Mike Nolan as our defensive coordinator and switch to a 3-4 defense. But Van Der Esch is out. Sean Lee has been out to start the year. Jalen Smith has been struggling. So basically, the three linebackers that were supposed to be good are pretty much either hurt or not been as good as previous seasons. So now we've got a 3-4 defense with 4 backup linebackers, essentially, and Jalen Smith struggling. So I just don't think the scheme is beneficial to how our players are set up, who we have on our roster. And I know like Mike McCarthy is wanting to, try to switch things up from the past, but even Rod Marinelli wasn't letting the Browns score 50 points on us. Like, come on.
Yeah.
On the bright side, at least you have some offensive weapons. Like CeeDee Lamb, the last couple of weeks is starting to actually turn into a really good second, third option for your team.
This is another thing that I think a lot of Cowboy fans would disagree with me on. Not about CeeDee Lamb. I agree with you there, Ben, that CeeDee Lamb is looking like a good player, good star player for us. But Dak Prescott has no pocket presence. I think there was he fumbled on one drive. He threw an interception on a late drive against you guys. And he took 2 sacks on third down, or not even third down, it was second down, where he could have just thrown the ball away or just dumped it down to our Zeke for a yard. And he takes the sack instead, and it just kills the drive. And then I know people, saying that, it's not Prescott's fault, the defense is playing so well. Well, yeah, but whenever he fumbles, gives the Browns 30 yards to score, and then he's taking drive-killing sacks, and we only have 14 points going into the fourth quarter. I think it's more on, it's obviously the defense is horrendous, but I also think the offense, and I don't know, Dak and Zeke, now that our offensive line has degraded, and we don't have Tyron Smith, we don't have Travis Frederick, Lyle Collins, our right tackle, who's been really good. I think he was the second highest rated right tackle last year. And then we've been having to start rookies and undrafted free agents this year. This year and last year, Zeke just looks like an average running back to me. I mean, Tony Pollard has looked better in the few touches he's gotten as far as being patient and making like quick moves. But I don't know. I think it's not as much blame on the offense, but I think the offense should score more than 14 points going into the fourth quarter against the Browns. Like,
I agree. I mean, the thing is, you guys don't have to worry too much right now about being in a terrible position because one game has the division right now.
Division's so good.
So
yeah, but it's just not fun to watch the games, though. Like, you know, I'd rather it be, which obviously, like, would you rather be in our position or would you rather be, like, really competitive division like the NFC North where, like, the Steelers and the Ravens look like they could both go, like, 12-4 and one of them's going to be a walk? Like, would you rather have that or would you rather be in a horrible division?
that's understandable. I can get that.
So, I don't know. It's just like the Seahawks game, I thought we turned a corner. We looked good. I think my predictions about the Seahawks defense being terrible like 2 weeks ago that we were talking about, I think that's going to be true for the season. I think their defense is terrible too. But
yeah. Their big problem is they can't generate any pass rush whatsoever. That'll kill you because it doesn't matter. You could have the best corners in the league, but they can't cover for 10 seconds if you can't get a rush.
And if you can't get a rush, like the Cowboys, we've had Alden Smith has obviously been great at getting sacks. Like I think he leads the leagues in sacks, but DeMarcus Lawrence has been terrible ever since he signed a huge contract. And I just don't know why you wouldn't blitz. I don't know. I think some of these defensive coordinators like don't have as much talent as what they're used to having, and then they get flustered on what they should do whenever their defense is allowing a ton of points.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of defensive coordinators, what about the Patriots and everything going on there?
Well,
considering COVID and a new quarterback and all that stuff
well, the
going
Patriots clearly need to have Cam Newton
Whoa,
to win games.
It's
Brian Hoyer's
not
gone.
even close.
What are you talking about?
Did you watch that game?
It was awful.
Like, and then Jared Stidham was just as bad, if not worse. I mean, they were.
Jared Stidham kind of got put in, like, and they had to pass. Like, I don't.
No, I know. No, I get that. They clearly need Cam, though. I mean, honestly, I thought overall they played a pretty good game against the Chiefs. Like, I mean, it really got away from them there at the end, partially because they couldn't get an offense going. But their defense contained the Patriots for a while in that game, or their defense contained the Chiefs for the first part of that game. So,
yeah, and I think looking at that game, like it's obvious that when like the Patriots offense is rolling and they just don't have any options open in the backfield, you need Cam there because Cam's that guy who's a mobile quarterback. So when you don't have those looks, he can move. So obviously Brian Hoyer and they're not doing that. They're just stuck in the pocket, and it showed.
Well, they had that running back who like kind of came out of nowhere in that game. I don't even remember his name, but he had like 70 rush yards or something like that.
yeah. No, they've got a lot of talent in their running back room.
Yeah, they've been running multi-back system, and it's quite interesting what they're doing. I mean, you're seeing guys like Burkhead come out of nowhere, and then like the next week, it could be Michelle or it could be
James White. Yeah.
James White. It's just like you never know. Like it kind of sucks as a fantasy player because you're like, well, I'm not going to pick anybody from the Patriots.
Do you guys remember
you don't know
a
who's starting
Patriots
that
running
week.
back about 5 years ago by the name of Jonas Gray? Had
I
like
do.
400 yards, or not 400. He had like I don't know if it's like 250 yards and 4 touchdowns, and it looked like he was going to be their Patriots running back. Then I think later that week he showed up late to a practice and then just got benched for like the rest of the season.
That's what Belichick will do. But so to make a connection here, we talked about Brian Hoyer. Let's talk about Brian Hoyer's previous employer, the Houston Texans. Finally
About
firing
freaking time.
Bill O'Brien, who should have been fired a long time ago. I have long been an advocate that he's a terrible head coach. And they did it a little too late because
You're not going to manage the fact that he's a terrible GM too.
And I think the thing is, like, teams have seen the success that Belichick's had, and they've tried to find a coach that can be the coach and the GM and run a team as effectively as Belichick. But it seems like in every other circumstance, it's just been terrible. Like, you think Bill O'Brien trading away every good piece of talent they have and then bringing in Randall Cobb to cover it. And then, we can think about Chip Kelly a couple of years ago, just trying to decimate that Eagles roster to create the Oregon offense 2.0. I mean, it was just personally, I think teams just need to stop doing this because I think it's too easy if you're a coach and a GM to make like reaction-based decisions. Just because you're so, just because you've got much more of a relationship with the players. I think Belichick does a good job. Belichick does a good job of bringing in, he establishes the Patriot way, the respect, the hard work ethic. And if you can't instill that, I just don't think it's ever going to work.
Yeah, and I think that goes across all sports too. I mean, you had the Pistons with freaking which Van Gundy was it? Was it Steve or Jeff? They had one of the Van Gundys as their coach and GM. And I mean, look at where the Pistons are at now. They're in the eternal purgatory of NBA basketball, trading away young talent for a banged up Blake Griffin, who they hope can play maybe 15 games a year out of 82. It's just like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It is weird. But didn't, in all these cases, because Bill O'Brien appointed himself as the GM. It wasn't the owner right? Wasn't it? He just was like, I'm going to be the GM now.
Well, what happened was O'Brien and I don't remember the name of their previous GM did not get along well, and basically they established it's going to be me or it's going to be him. And the Texans owner decided to go with O'Brien instead of the GM, so they fired the GM and then they promoted O'Brien. That's how it went down.
Well, the Texans fans, I should say, should be, they really got lucky with this whole thing because they played the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Steelers, and even though the Vikings' record isn't great, they played still a pretty good team in the Vikings. So, their first 4 games were the death pit to start the year. So if they just imagine if they play the Dolphins one game, okay, maybe the Chiefs one of those, but they played the Dolphins, maybe the Jets or the Jaguars in one of their to start the season, and they're 2-2 right now. Do you guys think he still would have been fired at 2-2?
I think
No.
the big difference maker here that pushed him over the edge was the J.J. Watt altercation at practice, based off of what I've heard.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like J.J. Watt just ripped into him. And some people have speculated that maybe he was trying to get rid of J.J. Watt, which, after all he's done for the city of Houston, J.J. Watt kind of gets to have his way, I think. With the millions of dollars that he raised a couple of years ago. So I think that is what really pushed it over the edge. I don't know if he would have necessarily been fired because, like you said, that's a pretty impressive, group of teams. Honestly, the only team there I would have expected them to beat would have been Minnesota, but
Yeah, because the Vikings have looked pretty
Minnesota's
terrible this
they're
year.
starting to play better. Their offense is actually starting to look a lot better. And I think some of their young corners now they have a little more experience. I mean, this is still not a great Vikings team, but they're getting better. So
No, and I think not only did the J.J. Watt altercation, I think the D-Hop trade over the summer really played into it too. Because if you watched any of the Texans games this year, you can tell they are hurting in that backfield. They have no one back there to really I mean, they still have
Yeah, they still have Fuller.
They still have Fuller.
yeah, they still will for it.
No, yeah, they still. I mean, they still have Fuller, but Fuller is not a good replacement for DeAndre Hopkins, who's arguably I think he's probably the best receiver in the league right now, athletic wise. The dude's just a complete monster in the backfield. And watching their games, they're literally sticking to the ground game because Deshaun Watson literally has no one to throw the ball to.
Like they've been trying to run the ball more because Bill O'Brien is trying to justify getting David Johnson. Whenever they should just let Deshaun Watson just run around back there and just chuck it up to whoever's open. That's probably their best strategy going forward, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think their receiving core is bad, but I don't think they have a true number one anymore.
No, Fuller. I mean, Fuller's a good player. Don't get me wrong.
Fuller also hasn't proven he can stay healthy for a whole season yet either. So I wouldn't.
That too.
He's one of Watson's favorite targets, but I mean he's had he's missed a lot of time over the last 2 years with injuries.
And then they get Brandon Cooks for a second-round pick, and he also can't stay healthy.
Yeah, who's just been passed around. Yeah, it's just you really need that bona fide number one wide receiver. I mean, that's kind of why the Packers have been able to survive these last couple of years. You can have mediocre 2s and 3s as long as you have someone that can draw those double teams and catch the defenders, and that's what Hopkins was. I mean, I'd agree with what you said, Ben. I mean, Hopkins is one of the top elite receivers in the league for sure. So, and yeah, trading him away for
they traded him for basically a copy.
It was
machine
a fourth
and a piece
rounder.
Of butter.
A fourth rounder and David Johnson. And David Johnson coming off of these last couple years where he's also struggled with injuries. I mean, and he hasn't been quite as good, although part of that's just been his O-line was terrible. But that you can't justify that trade. I mean, the Cardinals got an absolute steal there.
Oh, and DeAndre Hopkins has looked great for the Cardinals. He's making Kyler Murray look like a stud.
I think Kyler Murray is a stud, but
I mean, he is a stud. But I think we'll get to that later.
Yeah, so, the whole situation doesn't make sense because they could have just kept Carlos Hyde, and then they could have just kept Hopkins. Right. It just was a befuddling situation. So.
And now Carlos Hyde is a backup in Seattle, and he's been playing great on the minutes and the looks he's getting, but he's scarce.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde has always been he's always provided pretty good production. I mean, solid running back.
I mean, I remember watching him I'm an Ohio State fan. I remember watching him at Ohio State. That dude, he's not your average halfback. He's just one of those guys you hand him the ball and you tell him to run because nobody's going to stop him. He's like a freight train.
Yeah. So we were just talking about Kyler Murray, who's a young quarterback. Let's talk about another young quarterback who was just named the starter for the remainder of the season, Justin Herbert, which I think everyone thought might happen, especially with the way he's played for the most part. But Anthony Lynn came out last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, and he said that Tyrod Taylor would be their starter when they came back. And 2 days ago, he went back on that take and basically said that we drafted Justin Herbert to be our franchise quarterback. And, it's no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor, but, we think it's in the best interest of our organization to move forward with Justin Herbert. What are your thoughts on that?
I think real quick, we should just take a 3-second moment of silence for Tyrod Taylor. Thank you.
Coming off that, whoever the doctor is that stabbed Tyrod Taylor and punctured his lung needs a raise. Like whoever that team doctor is that did that just deserves the biggest raise, because if he never would have done that, then you would never would have started Justin Herbert against the Chiefs, and he wouldn't have been putting up the production. I mean, it's insane. I really, honestly, going into that Chiefs game, I really didn't expect anything. I was like, okay, rookie quarterback against the Chiefs, he's probably not going to be that good. Okay. He puts on a track race against the Chiefs. I was like, okay, Chiefs defense isn't that great. It's good. It gets him by. Goes into the next week. He's against Brady. Has an absolute slinging show against Brady. I mean, this kid's something else. Like, it's crazy. He's putting up 300 yards a week right now, almost, just about.
They should have won both those
promising.
games, honestly.
It's a good look for the Chargers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, that's not on him. That's on the defense, which – I don't know what's wrong. Their defense is normally
they just haven't been able to
good.
close
They've
out
just been
the
having a
games
couple
in the fourth
issues in the
quarter
red
in the
zone.
second half.
Yeah, I think because of the quarterback that Justin Herbert is, this is a good move. Because some quarterbacks, if you put them out there too early, it really hurts their development. I think Sam Darnold kind of got bit by that a little bit. I think he would have benefited from more time being on the bench. But because of how Justin Herbert's shown, like he looks comfortable back there. I mean, I think he's actually going to develop even more. Even if they don't win games, I think it's going to benefit him a lot more in the long run. And like I said, this isn't the case for every quarterback, I think, but just being out there and being able to go do his thing, because, I mean, for the most part, he's looked really good out there.
Yeah, and any draft analyst from this summer that said Justin Herbert was not better than Tua and Jalen Hurts and any of those guys, they need to stick a sock in their mouth and keep their mouth shut for the next
I
3 or 4
definitely
years.
agree. I definitely agree. If there was anybody who said Jalen Hurts was better.
Don't make me talk about how terrible Jalen Hurts is again.
We've covered that up.
I don't know.
Already,
yes, he's played good in a couple of games. I still think at any moment at this season, he could just start playing terrible. Like, I'm not completely sold on him yet. I've seen other rookie quarterbacks do this, and then they just end up being terrible. Yeah. I mean,
Baker
I
Mayfield.
still think Mayfield's terrible, but he can definitely improve. But I don't know. I'm not sold on him yet. I honestly didn't think he should have been like. I didn't think Herbert should have been drafted as high as he was, personally. But I don't know. Maybe he'll prove me wrong over this season. I still don't think the Chargers are doing anything this year, but.
I agree.
I don't either.
I don't think it affects them a whole lot to have him in or have him sitting for a performance point of view, especially with some of the injuries like Derwin James being out. But, I mean, I think if he begins to struggle, the smart move would be to put Tyrod Taylor back in. Because, I mean, confidence is everything, especially for young quarterbacks. So if you keep putting him out there and he's throwing 3 picks a game,
this
that can really
moving
hurt his development.
on to a different young quarterback and veteran. How about the benching of Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith being the backup this Sunday?
I think it's outrageous personally. I mean, I'm a little biased because, Buckeyes fan. But like if I keep seeing these tweets, I don't know if you saw it, but it was like comparing the stats of Josh Allen to Dwayne Haskins. Um, and Allen's stats, statistically, Allen was worse than Haskins. And I think the Redskins are, I mean, obviously I guess the Washington football team, sorry. They're the worst organization in management wise. I mean, you have no offensive line. And you're expecting this rookie, well, not a rookie, but he's basically a rookie because he barely played anything last year. You have this rookie quarterback going in there. He's getting sacked probably 2 or 3 times a game. So, I mean, yeah, of course he's not going to look good because he's getting the crap beat out of him. And then you're expecting him to toss 20-yard hauls on no offensive game plan. Ron Rivera has cancer, so he's probably not there all the time. It's just not a good situation. You have to feel bad for the
kid. I was going to second that. I was going to say I completely disagree with you.
You're not the only Buckeyes fan. You're not the only Buckeyes
He's got potential.
fan.
He's got potential.
I don't know.
He's got
Dwayne
potential.
Haskins is really good, so don't feel too bad there. But as a non-Buckeyes fan,
look, yeah,
it's okay. Justin Fields will be the better Ohio State quarterback in the NFL.
Let's not talk about Ohio. Let's not talk about Ohio State quarterbacks. No, and I mean, I wasn't expecting Alex Smith to play at all this year. Honestly, I don't. I wouldn't put him back out on the football field personally. I mean, if you've seen, technically he's been cleared, but if you've seen the pictures of his leg, I feel like he's still one defensive lineman landing on it away from having to go through it all again. Like, Alex Smith's put up a good career. He's been a solid quarterback. I think he's a guy who could be a good coach one day, but I would never put him back out on a football field. And honestly, moving back to Dwayne Haskins, Ron Rivera is the best coach the Redskins have had in a long time, even with him if he's out because of cancer treatment sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's not a good coach. I think he's a good coach. I just think that he might not be there fully right now.
From what I've seen from Dwayne Haskins and from what I've heard, like last year there was the report that he couldn't learn the playbook and that he couldn't read the playbook.
Oh, boy.
And that basically the organization thought last year it might take 2 years for him to get the offense down. From what I've seen from him, even with a bad team, I would not. I mean, I think he's somebody that's different than Justin Herbert. It's going to make him worse if he's continually out there.
I don't disagree with you, Ben, that Kyle Allen is complete trash as well. Like, yeah.
That's my thing. I'm like, which one? I'd rather take, no offense, I'd rather put Haskins out there than Kyle Allen, and I'm not going to put Alex Smith out there because, yeah, that was my whole thing too. It's like you might as well just stick with the young gun. The rest of your quarterbacks aren't really
Smith situation,
anything special.
It's interesting because I think if there's any shot that he could play as far, like, I don't know, I would try to play him if I could. Like, if there was any possible way that he could play and be okay, I would try to play him. It's kind of like a Derek Carroll situation where you're like, man, I wish I could look into the future and know if he's going to get hurt again so then I'd know what to do. But because if Alex Smith was healthy and he never got hurt 2 years ago, like, the Redskins would win the division this year. So, I don't know. That's kind of what I hope. I hope Alex Smith plays and they win the division because that would just be funny.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, this episode is a little later than usual, so we didn't get to make our picks for this game. But the Bears upsetting the Buccaneers. Getting to see that Nick Foles is still Tom Brady's daddy.
I heard about that. That whole situation's just nuts because the NFL guy that reported that he's suspended from the NFL Network till October 22nd now. I'm trying to think of his name. He made that report and he got suspended, and then because he didn't have the network's permission, I guess. And then, in the great words of like Alex Bryant, he said that the Bears are God's football team this year. And I mean, honestly, I'm starting to buy into it. The Bears are surprisingly a good football team this year. As much as everybody loves to hate on them all the time, they're actually a decent
Packers from
team
last year. They're completely trash. They're an okay team that has a good record disguised as a golden trash bag. Like, and I love Nick Foles. Like, honestly, I hope they get to a Super Bowl just because Nick Foles. But I don't know. And they do have a good defense. The Buccaneers should have won this game, but
Well, there was Tom Brady forgetting what down it was. At least it appeared that way at the end,
Brady.
too. Yeah, it was afterwards. They asked about it, and Bruce Arians said that Brady knew it was fourth down. But if you look at the live reaction on the field, because Brady's just standing out there while the rest of the offense is walking out the field, and he's holding up four fingers like it should be fourth down. So I don't buy into that. I think they're trying to save face a little bit there, but I mean, the Bears got it done. I entirely agree with Jonas. I've watched a lot of the Bears. They're an average team, I think. They've kind of got an underwhelming offense. I mean, Nick Foles provides them a lot more stability than with Trubisky. But, I mean, that defense is what really makes a difference for them sometimes. I mean, Khalil Mack, I think, had 3 sacks on Brady. And if you can, and someone like Brady, if you can keep hitting him, that somebody who's not mobile like that can really start to play with their head a little bit. So I don't know. I at this point, I mean, the Bears. Do you think they make the playoffs?
I mean, we'll have to see. Or I guess they already played this week. Who do they play next week?
I don't know.
I can pull that up right now.
I mean, they've beat some decent teams so far. That's the thing. Like they're playing some pretty good football teams, and they're playing some pretty good football. It's just,
I
give them till week 6 or 7, and then that's when I'll make my decision.
I thought at 3-0
you have those teams where they go on hot streaks at the beginning and they just fall off out of nowhere.
And how bad the NFC East is, and how bad Minnesota started. I thought they were pretty much a lock at 3-0. I mean, I think 8-8 will just about make the 7th wild card slot.
So here's their schedule. So next week they've got the Panthers. After that,
they'll win that one.
After that, they've got the Rams. I think the Rams beat them. They've got that. Then they've got the Saints.
I think the Rams will beat them.
The Saints will beat them. Then they've got the Titans, and I think the Titans will beat them. Then they're playing Minnesota in Week 10. And I've been saying it. I think Minnesota is going to be a lot better at the end of this season. So by Week 10, I think Minnesota can beat them. That's more of a
I think
that's more of a toss
had a rough start.
I think they could win every single one of those games. To be honest. Well, that's a loss.
Okay, well then they've got Green Bay. They've got Detroit. I think they win that game.
That's a win.
They play the Texans. They play the Vikings. They play the Jaguars. And they finish up in Week 17 against the Packers. And if the Packers keep playing the way they are, Aaron Rodgers probably isn't starting that game.
I think they got at least probably 10-6 would be my guess, to be honest.
I'm gonna put them at more like
I don't
9 and
think the
7,
Saints are as
but
good as
I
what
think
people
they get
think they
in.
are. I don't. I think
I
they'll beat the Vikings at least one of those
I'm with
times.
Jonas on that.
I mean, if they get a free win against the Packers that week, although with there not being two bye teams in the playoffs now, you still might see Aaron Rodgers starting if necessary. You know, unless you guys are like 14-1 or something crazy.
that was more of a joke. I think we're going to be vying with
But
Seattle there at the top.
But I don't know. I think they 100% make the playoffs, but I thought that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's enough Bear talk because, let's be honest, nobody really likes the Bears that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much all the major – oh, no, one more storyline. Another big one. The Titans have continued to have cases, and the report came out that they were illegally holding practices at a local college, and the league's been investigating that. That game's been delayed until Tuesday this week. The NFL did say that they would consider making teams forfeit games if it impacts scheduling down the road. I think there's going to have to be something that comes out of this investigation. I think players are going to get fined substantial amounts, at least for the ones they can prove are there. I know they said Ryan Tannehill was there. I don't think we're not gonna see a forfeit at this point. I think as long as there's no more cases. They said if there's more cases, then they'll have to start looking into other options
at all. I think if anything, they'll just postpone it to the end of the year and just have maybe 1 or 2 buffer weeks for just makeup games. But I don't think they'll forfeit at all because I just think that messes with. I just think that would mess with it too much whenever you have such a small sample size of games versus baseball. You have so many games. You miss out on 1 or 2. Okay, not a big deal, but you miss out 1 or 2 in the NFL. I mean, 2 games, that's an eighth of the season. So,
yeah. I mean, go ahead, Ben.
And the Titans. Oh, I was going to say the Titans are a good football team, so for them to have to forfeit games just kind of sucks too, because they're not a terrible football team. It's not like they're bottom of the league,
right?
They're a competitive team.
I don't think they're going to forfeit anything unless the league said it would be last option. My guess is if this continued with the Titans and the league continuously kept having to reschedule games, if this happened again, I think then it becomes more likely. But I think that's only going to come into play if a team is repeatedly not following guidelines, keeps having cases, because when you keep having to reschedule games, that also affects the teams they're playing. So I think they did say they were going to put in a week 18 as a buffer week, most likely. So that does provide some coverage there, but I think we're going to start seeing – I did see today, too, that the league added that referees can now throw flags if coaches are not wearing their masks properly.
I saw that, and I think it's
I don't know if you guys saw that. Yeah.
Really? I did not.
My guess is it would be an unsportsmanlike type of penalty. Just thinking about it, I didn't see details on what it was. I kind of agree. I think it's kind of stupid. I've thought it was kind of stupid that they've had to wear masks when they're with the players all week. They're tested as much as the players.
Without wearing masks.
Yeah. And the coaches, half the time they're covering their mouths with their play sheet.
Andy Reid face shield because you just want to act like that actually does anything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think it makes much sense
I think the
since they're all
NFL
together
might
all week.
get rid of
Personally,
some of the Titans' draft picks with all this. I think that's more likely to happen than a forfeit.
I think that'll depend
That's
on
a good point.
if the coaching staff or management knew about it. Because I think at that point then they can take draft picks. But I think if it's, which I mean, you got to think coaches knew about this,
Well,
right? Like
with
somebody knew.
with having Mike Vrabel as your head coach, it is pretty good. Pretty high chance that he knew about it.
Yeah, but I think if they can't prove that management or coaching was involved, I think it'll probably just stick to fines for the players and probably some on the organization itself.
Well, I guess my other question regarding this is this the time that the NFL should experiment with having a football game every day of the week?
Oh, man. I like that idea because I love football, and it's a lot easier to be more invested in games when you don't have half the games going on at one time. I think it becomes more of a logistical and a ratings issue because I remember that they were talking about like if they did it on Saturdays. Well, if you have a big matchup, like Alabama and Georgia or something playing, that may suck ratings away
You just need two
from the
TVs.
NFL game. So I agree. Or you just you schedule it at a different time. Like it's that simple. I mean, you put it at night on Saturday or something. Like I like the idea. I just think it becomes more because then you've got to get into, if you have a team play, at one point in the week, you've got to figure out a way to balance it. So everybody has even off
they
days
could do it
between
if
games
they really wanted
for the
to.
most part.
No, I don't think they will
could.
either, but it's a dream.
I don't think they will, but
It is
well,
a dream.
I think it's time to
Can I just
get
say
into some of our picks for this week's games.
was not my week. I picked some very bad picks, like the Jets.
Yeah. You and Devin both chastised me for not picking them. I told you guys that
Okay, I
this
picked them
Jets
too,
team
Jonas.
would lose to the 0-16 Lions 16 times. Like, I have no faith, even if the Broncos are starting a guy named Brett Ripien.
Honestly.
I'm shocked Adam Gase hasn't been fired yet, though, because you have to be. How are you not fired after losing to Brett Ripien? Like, it's already been bad this year, but it's just. I did see that the Jets were reaching out to coaching agencies, which means Gase will not be here next year for sure, probably, unless they somehow perform a miraculous turnaround. Which.
Oh no!
So are you picking the Jets this week? Well, let's get started with these picks. So our first pick is going to be the Rams at the Washington football team.
Yes.
I think all of us are picking the Rams. Am I correct? We talked about that earlier with the quarterback situation. No need to go into further detail. Next, we've got the Eagles at the Steelers. I kind of have a feeling this one might be unanimous as well.
Yeah, this one's the Steelers. I mean, you have the Steelers are getting Deontay Johnson back healthy off a concussion protocol. Um, the Eagles' defense is terrible against tight ends, so Ebron's
Can I
probably going
just
to have
say
himself
that
quite
I
the
knew the
day on
Eagles were going to
Sunday
win this
for all
past
you
week?
fantasy folks.
Even though I didn't pick them, I figured that would be this stupid game that they win against a good team because they always do it one time a year somehow. But yeah, I'm going to still say the Steelers for this week.
Yeah, again, I've said it every week. That defense
And they
almost got
injured
into the
Carson
playoffs
Wentz
alone
for the
last year.
memes this
So
week.
there's, yeah. So Steelers there. I have a feeling this next game is probably going to be unanimous as well. The
Yes, it's
Cardinals at the
unanimous.
Jets.
But I will say the Cardinals have blew it.
Cardinals.
Have just absolutely blown it against their last two opponents. They should be 4-0. This could be 5-0 for them if, they just played a little bit better the last 2 weeks. But
I agree. They
they just
seem to
don't have a
still
good enough
be
defense
having
yet.
some lapses at times. Yeah, I mean, you have to remember that this team really wasn't expected to be competing the way they are at this point. So, I mean, they're ahead of schedule.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
true.
Next game is the Raiders.
Look, I picked
the
the
Chiefs.
Raiders that last week against the Bills, and
Chiefs.
I just the Raiders, they've lost me. So.
Well, the Raiders, with all their injuries on their defense, is just what's going to kill them too, especially because their secondary. They have so many injuries in their secondary right now. I just don't think they can keep up with the Chiefs' backfield players.
Literally every game he throws it away.
Yes, I was going to say my big thing. My big thing is I don't think Derek Carr has any chance of keeping pace with Patrick Mahomes. So, I mean, it's that too. I think the Chiefs.
This is going to be like 37,
especially after this last week. They're
ridiculous.
probably their offense. Yeah, I think their offense is going to go off this week. This next game, we've got Minshew Mania, the Jaguars, at the Bill O'Brien-less Texans.
This one's just a toss-up of who's not worse.
You see, I believe in the mustache, so I'm going to take a wild pick here and go with the Jags. I think Minshew and the Bill O'Brien-less Texans against them, he's going to tear it up, I think.
I think I'm going to pick the Jags as well.
I don't blame you guys for picking the Jaguars. But if I pick them again, that would mean that I have picked them 5 in a row. So I think Deshaun Watson.
I think this is a total crapshoot of a game,
and I think he carries them to the win.
I just don't know.
I mean, let's be honest,
with the coaching change,
Deshaun Watson just ran out there and just ran around and just chucked it everywhere.
Yeah, that's my concern with
Bill
the
O'Brien. Like, I don't think that's going to change too much.
No, I agree. Especially not this year. They're not going to try to install a new system mid-season. That just doesn't work. But
that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I'm going with the bold pick. Like Ben said, going with the mustache. We've got the Bengals at the Ravens.
I don't know. This almost seems like a trap game for the Ravens to me.
This should be unanimous.
Joe Burrow just got his first win. Lamar Jackson has a knee injury, maybe. Questionable. Do we see an upset
And Mark
here?
Andrews is potentially
I don't
out,
know.
too.
I just still have to pick the Ravens out of good faith, though. I think it'll be closer than what people think, though.
Yeah, I think I've got to
I
do
do
the
too.
same. I'll be interested to see how it goes, especially Joe Burrow coming off of his first win. But I think the Ravens are a much better overall team.
Yeah.
So, this next one could be an interesting matchup. Panthers at the Falcons. I'll go first. I'm going to pick the Falcons. I'm going to pick the Falcons. I think this is a must-win.
A mistake
for Dan Quinn. So I think
but they've won the two
Panthers
games.
haven't been great this year. So. No Christian McCaffrey. I know. I think this is a must-win for them. Matt Ryan is sick of losing.
Nope.
I don't think they're going to have Julio Jones.
Yeah, but that means they're going to have double
I
coverage
trust
on
that
Ridley,
Gage guy.
Let me tell you all the reasons why this is a horrible pick. Okay.
Well, you can say it's a terrible pick, but I'm the one who picked the Broncos
I guess we'll just
last
take
week.
turns on making terrible picks. But look, Matt Ryan, you just said he's tired of losing. However, with his performance last week, it didn't look like he was tired of losing to me. He looks like a horrible quarterback who just, throws ducks out there. The defense just going out there like giving hugs to Aaron Rodgers like he's their almighty savior. Like, oh, thank you for beating us. We can finally get rid of this Dan Quinn idiot. So I think it's a must-win for Dan Quinn. However, I think the players are all in agreement that it's a must-lose so they can get rid of Dan Quinn. So, Panthers. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying Panthers on this one. I think Teddy Bridgewater is starting to find his rhythm in North Carolina. Even though they don't have McCaffrey, Mike Davis, who's his backup right now, has been playing phenomenal the last 2 weeks. So I really give it to the Panthers here. I think they're going to be fine. He's a receiver that plays
basically
from the
just
running back slot.
Ty Montgomery.
That's all it is.
Okay, well, I'll be happy to take a free win there. Moving on, we've got the Dolphins at the 49ers.
Yeah,
Mark, I'll let
isn't a question either. I think even with all the injuries that the 49ers have, I think they take this one still.
I think the 49ers are going to win it, but I don't think it's that unanimous. I mean, I think the Dolphins could still make it a fairly competitive game.
The 49ers backups are atrocious.
So,
well, Jerick McKinnon was supposed to be their starter like 2 years ago, but he's had like
their backup running back's not
injuries
been bad
the last 2 years. So I just don't think Nick Mullins or C.J. Beathard are
now he's playing really good football,
viable option to try and win games, even for like 3 or 4 games that Jimmy G's out. But
I agree, but I mean they're obviously not great options. But I think this will be a close game. I think this one's probably low scoring. Next, we've got the Giants, the Cowboys.
Just give me the Giants at this point.
Jonas, you want to lead off?
I don't even want to cheer for the Cowboys. Get rid of Mike McCarthy. He's terrible. That's what I'm saying. Tank for Trevor.
Tank for Trevor?
Let
Dak sign a
contract.
Nice big long contract
somewhere else. Let him just play like trash. Please. He's the most average quarterback I've ever seen. Give me Tony Romo.
So if the Giants win, do you
Look,
guys
we
just
should instantly
instantly
fire
fire
Mike
Mike
McCarthy
McCarthy
and just
and bring
hire
back
Lincoln
Jason
Riley,
Garrett?
please. Or just hire somebody that knows how to coach defense. Oh.
Honestly.
Ben, what's your pick?
I'm taking the Cowboys here. Devontae Freeman's a great fill-in that they picked up from free agency to replace Saquon Barkley. I just don't think the Giants have the offensive weapons to beat the Cowboys. I don't. I just
I
don't think they have
agree.
the
I
offense.
think the Giants'
at all.
offense is terrible, and I know the Cowboys' defense hasn't been good, but we
But at
know the
least the
Cowboys' offense can
offense
put
can
up
outpace
points.
the
Granted,
Giants.
most of them are
Let me
kind
just
of in
tell you,
garbage
for
time
those
or
of
trying to
you
make a
playing
comeback.
fantasy, Dalton Schultz,
But
our
I'm still
tight
picking
end, is a
Cowboys.
must-start. Our tight ends obliterate the Giants every year. I think they've averaged like 20 points. Last year, Blake Jarwin had like 500 total yards for the season. Like 200 of them were against the Giants and like 3 touchdowns. Just start Dalton Schultz. I am.
Well, talking about must-start tight ends, this is
Yeah,
a little bit of a segment. We don't have the Packers to talk about this week, so I got to bring it up. But our last podcast, I mentioned that Robert Tonyan was a fantasy sleeper. And what did Robert Tonyan do?
He put up a 30
He put up a
burger
3-touchdown,
Too bad nobody started him.
95-yard game. I think I saw that he's now been picked up. I think he's still only been picked up in like 50% of leagues last I checked, but keep an eye on him. He's emerging as one of Rodgers' favorite targets. So, but Ben, I think I cut you off if you want to.
Yeah, I would say I'm starting Ebron this week. I think the Steelers with Big Ben. I think that's just a good look this week. But yeah, I'm with Jonas on Schultz. Schultz is
Dak
probably gonna have a
seems to
pretty
like
good
to
week
throw
this
to
week.
his tight ends. That's never seemed to be a problem. So, but, okay, moving on from the Giants and Cowboys. Next, we've got the Colts and the Browns. Ben, this is your game.
Yeah, I'm going with the Browns. It's just a gut feeling. I think it's our year. I think we're off to the best start we've had since 2001. The game against the Cowboys was the first time we put up 28
Too
points in
bad
the
you guys
first
are
half
in
since
the best
1990
division
something.
in football.
Like it's our year to lose. It really is. So I'm just gonna put all. I know that's the part. That's the part that sucks. Is that like even if we play really good and we have a decent enough record, the only way we'll make it is through a wild card game, and even then we have the Steelers to deal with. So I think the Colts defense is fantastic. It's going to take a lot of work for the Browns to beat them, but I think it's possible. I really do.
You there, Jonas? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and talk about. I'm picking the Colts here, just mainly because of that defense. They've looked phenomenal so far this year, and hey, no,
Yeah,
Jonathan Taylor, I'm
offense,
calling it
though.
right
It's
now,
all the defense.
must start. He's going to have 173 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 receiving, 1 running. Start him.
Okay, that's fair. But Philip Rivers is. We both can agree that Philip Rivers is not the starting quarterback.
No, but I mean, he wasn't
for the long
considered to
term.
be the long term. I mean, Philip Rivers he's in his 30s, so you can't. I mean, they signed him to a 1-year, $25 million deal, I think. So it's just a short-term move, but
I think so. Yeah.
they'll they'll get through.
Yeah, hopefully that didn't
We lost Jonas there for a
anything up
second.
too
Jonas,
much.
you back?
Oh,
Nope, we're good. We're good. We, I just kind of rambled
Prodigal
there a
son
little
has
bit.
returned.
I was talking about I picked the Colts because of their defense, and I made the prediction that Jonathan Taylor is going to have 173 rushing yards this week, and that he's going to have one receiving touchdown
yeah, I'm
and
taking
one
the
rushing
Colts.
touchdown, so he's a must start.
The Browns' offense isn't as good as what last week showed. Colts.
All right. Seahawks and Vikings.
The Vikings have gotten better, but that defense still
rough.
won't be able to stop. I think Daniil Hunter's out for the year now, which is or at least the trainers are recommending that he takes the entire year off. I don't remember what his injury is exactly. So that's a huge blow to their pass rush and defensive line as a whole.
Yeah, Seahawks for me.
I don't think they can stop the Seahawks offense. So
yeah, it's Seahawks for me. Russell Wilson's playing at the MVP level this year. I think he needs to be in the conversation for that this year, and their offense just looks really good. Their two-back system with Chris Carson and Hyde's great. Their passing.
I do think this will be a high-scoring game, though, because the Seahawks defense is not good, and the Vikings offense
Adam Thielen must start
improved
this week.
This season. So,
and Adam Thielen, his kid's birthday.
I'd start Justin Jefferson too
on Sunday, so 100% must start.
Oh, got to. Yeah. Next, we've got the Broncos at the Patriots.
Yeah, I think he's still out.
I'm taking the Broncos because Cam's not going to be back this week. Is he? Is Cam back this week? No, he's still out, right? If Cam's still out by Sunday, then yeah, I'm taking the Broncos every day because you cannot tell me that Brian Hoyer
I guarantee it'll be Jarrett Stidham.
The Patriots over the Broncos. As terrible as the Broncos, as injured as the Broncos are, I still think they can beat the Patriots.
I think
Go ahead, Jonas, if you want to make your pick.
I think Jarrett Stidham will start. I think the Patriots defense could have like 2 pick sixes in this game, to be honest. And just for that reason, I think I'm going to pick the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm the same way. The Broncos are a much worse team than the Chiefs, and the Patriots hung around for a while with the Chiefs. So I think their defense alone, as long as the offense can put up some points or at least move the ball down the field a little bit, which they should be able to do, I think the Patriots win. Next, we've got the Chargers at the Saints. I'll tell you what, I'm picking the Chargers.
This one's tough.
I agree with what you guys were saying earlier. The Saints are not as good as what everybody thinks. Drew Brees has definitely regressed. And I think Justin Herbert will have a nice week. So I'm picking the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Chargers too. I just don't see how the Saints in their current look beat the Chargers because the Saints offense with Breeze regressing as much as he has just looks atrocious. They just can't get completions. There's a lot of missed passes.
He doesn't seem to have any rhythm. Any of his other receiving options, other than
no.
Well, I was going to say Alvin Kamara,
Michael Thomas.
but those when he's giving it to Kamara, it's just a short little dump off that Kamara can
Alex
turn
Smith
into a big
hasn't
play.
been great for the Saints this year, but I'm still gonna pick the Saints because I don't believe in Mr. Sherbert for the Chargers. Were you looking for the big brain pick?
Of course,
it's disappointing.
Well, I was hoping that you would.
I don't think we have a big brain.
No, I was hoping you would have picked the Dolphins over the 49ers, but
the Panthers over the Falcons. I couldn't do it, man. And I don't think this next game is going to provide us an opportunity for a big brain. It's the Tuesday night game, the Bills at the Titans.
I'm going with the Bills on this one, not only because I have Josh Allen as my quarterback for fantasy. I just think that the Bills are a good football team this year. And the Titans, with COVID and everything going on, I just don't.
I'm also gonna pick the Bills.
I don't see how they win.
Bills have looked really good so far this year. Titans, I don't know what their status is with all these cases and not being able to have official practices and stuff. I have no clue what to expect from them, but
Mark,
the Bills have just looked really good so far this year, so I got to go with the Bills as well. Well, there's no explanation needed there.
I guess the only we could make the Colts our big brain pick. I guess not that big brain, but
sad.
I mean, they're playing. It's 3-1 team versus 3-1 team.
I guess that could be one.
I don't know.
mean, my guess is most people are picking the Browns just based off of their offensive output from last week.
Or medium brain.
Yeah, we'll call that our big brain.
Oh, true.
We round up though, so it's a big brain. So, well, that covers all of our games for this next week.
Yeah,
I don't have anything else from the football side. If you guys don't.
No, I'm good on football now.
All right. Well, next we've got the NBA. I'll let you two lead with it because I think your guys are slightly more invested in in the NBA than I am.
Yeah, you better not say I'm invested in the WNBA. Lord knows I never watched
WNBA, NBA, same thing, right? So, Lakers up in the series 3-2. Thoughts so far?
Well, give it to the Heat. Honestly, I thought the Lakers were going to kind of dominate this series, but Jimmy Butler and the Heat players have been absolute underdogs, and they've been leaving it all on the court. I really appreciate that. I still think Lakers in 6. Additionally, I mean, yesterday's game hurt pretty hard to watch at the end. If you watch the last 2 minutes of the game, Danny Green, man, great player on the Spurs, had a really huge part in the Raptors championship run last year. But this year, man, he's just atrocious. I mean, you have a wide open 3-pointer all the time in the world to take a shot, and you brick. It's just unbelievable.
I mean, I've been watching it. You and me both picked the Lakers to win this series 4-2. The Heat have fought, but I mean, if you look at like Jimmy Butler after the game, after his press conference, I mean, if you watched how he was walking away, I mean, he is. Well, I think he's
not going to be able to play that well in game 6.
He's putting it all out on the court. Like, props to Jimmy. He's doing everything he can to will this team to win. I think the Heat, like especially with like Tyler Harrow, with his emergence, um, I think they've got a lot to be excited about. I think they're still missing
Yeah.
another key player or two, and they're just
If Dragic was healthy, this series would be totally different
yeah.
than what we're
Lakers
seeing
just
now.
have more talent,
That's the
and
quote.
Jimmy
To
Butler
be
can only do so
honest, as
much.
soon as the
So
Clippers got
I
eliminated,
think the
to
Lakers do
me the
win this.
NBA got super boring. Like I honestly have not watched any of the NBA finals just because, like, yeah, the Heat have, played well enough to win 2 of these games, but I don't know. It just was kind of boring. I think everyone kind of knew the Lakers. If it wasn't the Clippers, it was going to be the Lakers. I think those were like the only 2 teams anybody really even chose. But yeah, like you guys said, props to the Heat. They have a good future in front of them, especially in the Eastern Conference, which is just a waste of space. But yeah, I don't know. It's just the NBA to me is honestly, how do you make the NBA more exciting? Like,
Pretty much.
I don't know.
I think you have less games, and I think Adam Silver's been trying to get the playoff proposition to where instead of East West, you have seeded 1 through 16, and I think that's definitely where they need to start going because we have good teams like the Clippers getting knocked off in the second round,
Yeah,
or teams like Boston getting knocked out. You just have good teams that are getting knocked out way too
I
early
don't know. You just need more
because of the
talent in
seeding
the
the way it
East.
is.
Like there's such a talent gap between the East and the
That
West.
too. Yeah.
Like if you're in the East, I mean, I'm 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 not too hard on the
I mean, and
Nets.
you have to remind
I
yourselves next year
you've
that we'll get
got
the Nets team
you've
back
got
yet
Kevin
too. So I
Durant
mean, there's
and
another team
Kyrie
there that
Irving,
people aren't thinking about.
two
You'll have the
guys
Brooklyn Nets
who do
next
not want to
year.
pass the ball.
I'm not fully sold on them.
So and neither one is too great on the defensive end. So I'm not sold on them.
the East is just full of good regular season teams. None of the teams are very good in the playoffs. So like, I think the Heat, this year with Jimmy Butler, have proven like they could get there again like next year because just the Raptors aren't very good in the playoffs. They don't have like a killer, player. Giannis, as good as he is, isn't like a guy that I think can just win you a series. And the Celtics have a good team, but I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't know what the Celtics are missing, but clearly
They
they're
blow it
missing
every year.
something to get them over the hump. They're missing Anthony Davis, I guess.
They're missing a center.
But
I can tell you that.
and then yeah, I mean everyone else. I kind of I don't know. The Nets could be a wild card team. I think next year they could be like really good. Just depends on how much respect Kyrie Irving gives like his teammates and Steve Nash, the coach. So that situation is just going to be wild.
God, I forgot about that.
The Nets don't have a bad team, but I don't know. The East is like a crapshoot, and I think they should decrease. Like I said earlier, they should do like 3 or 5 games in the first couple of series of the playoffs to just shorten the playoffs because, I mean, besides the Clippers and the Nuggets series, and like the Clippers and the Mavericks series was pretty entertaining as well, but really besides those 2 series, the first round is just so boring. Like, and the second round is even pretty boring. At least
It's
this year,
so
the second
long.
round, you had the Nuggets and the Clippers and the Celtics and the Raptors were, that was entertaining. But like the last 5 years, the first and the second rounds have just been like, why even bother watching? Like, even like in the Western Conference with the Warriors, the past 5 years have been like, besides 1 year, just honestly, I'd rather
Don't forget
than
they'll be
win than
back next
LeBron
year.
again. I just
Maybe.
or honestly, it's not even LeBron. As I just hate the Lakers in general. Anthony Davis and LeBron just seem like sellouts to me, going to gang up together. But
Yeah.
at least the NBA will be over. To be honest, that's how I feel about the NBA this season. I don't know if you guys saw. I don't want to get like too political, since this is a sports show.
Yeah, the bubble is just.
I don't know if you guys saw that they, according to like Adam Silver, I think, or league execs, they are going to try to leave the politics to more off the court due to the massive decline in ratings. So, just
I did see that.
Yeah,
that's good.
Well,
you'd think they would have learned that the first time, but
then again, it's the NBA. So, well, I think that brings us to everyone's favorite part of the show, and that's the sports that we do not care about whatsoever. And to start off, I'll start off with the French Open, Roland Garros. We have Novak Djokovic playing Rafa Nadal in the final, getting back to the classics, and this should be a good matchup. This is for all the marbles. If you're a fan of Roger Federer, Nadal can tie Federer's Grand Slam total at 20 if he wins. Djokovic is, he could get to 18 if he wins. Honestly, if you're a Roger Federer fan, it's depressing either way because they're both going to pass him, I think. But should be a good match. I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, I'm looking more forward to that match than watching the Cowboys against the Giants. So, but yeah, that should be pretty good. And then I think the WNBA is finally over. Their 1 month long season finally comes to a close. I don't even know who won at this point.
That nobody watched.
Probably whoever had Brianna Stewart, because she's like the only good back.
Can you name me like 10 WNBA teams even, Jonas?
I could probably name the towns, the cities, just by guessing. I know Brianna Stewart is the
that's
only
my point
good
exactly.
WNBA player.
Nobody knows
I think,
the team name.
If you're going to pick a team, just pick her team to bandwagon on. But yeah, that's over. And then I think there's some sort of MLS something going on. I'll just let Mark talk about his favorite sport.
Well, to be honest, I don't really know what's going on in the MLS because we care just about as much as Bill Belichick cares about what he looks like on a Wednesday afternoon press conference. And with that, this has been episode 4 of the MJ Sports Podcast. Special thanks to Ben for joining us today. Hopefully we can get him back in the future. He's not quite as pricey as Devin, but our budget's still pretty low. So thanks for listening.